my name is Cliff Edson, and welcome to Inside View in beautiful Calaveras County. Tonight, we have a very special guest here, Peter Maurer, who is the planning director for Calaveras County. And I've known Peter for quite a while. He's a real asset to the county, and I'm happy to have him here. How you doing tonight, Peter?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Hey, Peter. I know that we've had some bumps in the road in the county, but how do you think we're doing in Calaveras County?
Well, I think overall we're doing pretty good. Right now we're struggling with the whole COVID-19 pandemic issues. Everyone's having to adjust. The county itself, the various departments are working at trying to continue service to the public while maintaining the health and safety of its employees as well as the general public. For us, we've split our department into two shifts. We have Group A that works Monday, Tuesday, and alternate Wednesdays, and Group B that works the other days in the office. And then when we're not working in the office, we're working remotely from home. Just so in case there is some kind of infection, we need to quarantine for a period of time, the whole office doesn't shut down. And I think that's pretty common throughout most of the departments. But we're still doing everything we can to provide the necessary service to the public. We are considered an essential service. That's probably arguable in some people's minds, but that's what the government says we are. So, but the reality is there's business that needs to go on, and we're there to try to provide that. We're still holding planning commission meetings and board meetings remotely through various platforms. We're processing development applications. We'll meet people by appointment and keep our social distancing in place, and try to maintain the sanitation and safety precautions that we need to do to prevent a huge outbreak here in the county. Mm-hmm. The building department, which we share the office with, people are coming and going all the time. We allow one person in at a time. You've got to sanitize your hands first, and then you present your plans. Fortunately, we've moved to a lot of electronic processing recently, and so we're not touching plans as much as we were. So even if there was some contamination, even though it's probably remote, we're playing it safe, and we're able to process permits and schedule things in a timely manner.
Yeah, see, that's one thing that I never would have thought of, actually. I'm glad that you're there, about redundancy, because I know that if you have a government operation like yours, if somebody gets sick and you get everybody sick, then it's down.
Yeah.
But so the idea of splitting the crew and the shifts is a really, really great idea. Could you tell me a little bit about the hours that are going on over there? I know that there are some people coming to the government center, and they may be getting a little confused about coming there, let's say after 1 o'clock or something like that, because they're used to just stepping in anytime up till 4:30.
Yeah. Well, the hours really haven't changed, at least not for my department. I can't speak for all the departments. And I have to say, it wasn't my idea to split the shift. I can't take credit for that. That was someone else's idea. But I said, I'll use that one. But no, we're still open, regular hours, 8 to 4. We're answering phone calls, and if someone does need to come in, again, we recommend that people make an appointment first so we can, schedule a meeting and we don't have, conflict people. We're actually going back to a more regular operation, probably as early as next week, but we're still going to be maintaining the safety protocols that have been established for us. We have to go through a fairly rigorous process to get clearance from the Human Resources Department and the Health Department to make sure that people aren't being pushed together into the same room too close together. We maintain our distances. Again, this is primarily for the public safety, but also for the employee safety as well. We want to make sure that if there is exposure, that it's minimized. So we're still operating our normal hours, even though it may seem like no one's there. There's always someone there available. The door is locked just to keep people from just coming in and congregating, but all you need to do is knock on the front door and someone from the building department will come in and let you in.
All right, great. I was there today.
Good.
Let's talk about some of the things that you're doing as in your business right now. Like, for instance, the general plan. I heard you talking about it earlier, and I'm really interested in that, as you know.
Well, as you're well aware, this has been something that's been going on for a very long time. That was my primary goal when I started over 6 years ago now. Get that thing done. It took a lot longer than I had anticipated and had hoped, but it did get adopted last November. Very pleased that that happened. I think it is a pretty good plan, considering a general plan, any kind of planning document is a work of compromise. And there's a lot of competing interests in the county, business interests, environmental interests, homeowners, agricultural interests, and they all want something a little bit different. And so there's a give and take that's necessary as part of any planning decision that's made. And I think that we made some good compromises, and we have a decent plan that will lead us into the future for the next 20 or so years. I always said that this shouldn't be just a plan that's put on the shelf and 20 years have gone by, we need to redo it again.
Yeah.
If I had my druthers and I were around 20 years from now, I would never do it again. I would go back and look at it periodically. How are we doing? It's like a business plan. You don't open a business and say, this is what we're going to do, and just blindly follow that path, whether you're making money or not. If we're not going in the direction that we expect, or there's some significant change, COVID-19, for example, we don't know how that's going to affect the economy of the county. And if we find, in the next year or so that, we need to change course somehow, we should do that. We should, be prepared to look at how we're doing. Are these policies, are the land use designations, are measures helping us or hindering us in the direction we want to go? And maybe we want to change direction. So let's do it, but let's do it, on a regular basis. Let's revisit that plan. Let's, assess how we're doing and decide, yeah, we still want to go in this direction, but to do that, we need to fix this over here, maybe fix this over here a little bit, so that it's a dynamic process.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just like any business, is constantly shifting as population changes, history. Who knows what might happen in the next years. We could have, hopefully not another big disaster of some sort like the fire. That could change things. So, it's a dynamic process. But getting that thing done and certified was a major milestone. I'm really quite proud of that.
Yeah. Well, and I worked with you before, and I was always very confident in that you would be the one to get her done. So
thanks.
Dynamic is good. I know that. How many times a year can you go in and make changes to the general plan if you need to?
It varies on which part of the plan you're changing. So, for example, the land use element you could change 4 times a year, but you can also batch those. So, if there are 3 or 4 people that are processing a general plan amendment at the same time, a landowner that wants to change his property from residential to commercial, or someone else that wants to go to ag to some other use, you can batch that into a single general plan amendment action by the board that includes multiple parts. So, it's really unlimited, but you just don't want to be changing it willy-nilly. You need to look at it, how does this change affect the overall direction of the plan? But, so we can change it, pretty much as often as we need to. But there are some limitations. So 4 times a year for the land use element. Some of the other elements have similar restrictions. But we're not going to do it that often. We're going
4 times a year is a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. Yeah, we don't want to do. And if we go back in another year from now and say, okay, how are we doing now? Where do we need to make those changes? We can pick out a few polys, identify some mitigation measures or implementation measures, and say these need to be tweaked a little bit to keep us moving in the direction that we want to go.
Okay. So normally, what is the time? What is the law timeline on the general plan?
There really isn't one, but typically the horizon that you look for is about 20 years. Because looking beyond that is just pure speculation. And even 20 years from now, who knows what life could be like.
Right.
But you think, okay, over a 20-year period, we can get projections of growth in the county. You know, okay, we're expecting a certain number of population growth, say 5,000 people. Where can they go? Where do we want them to go? What resources do we want to protect? What industries do we want to promote? You know, are there new industries that come up that we haven't thought of, that we want to start looking at, that we might consider appropriate for our community? So all those things, you know, sort of need to be looked at on a regular basis. But to project beyond 20 years is just sort of an exercise in futility.
Well, the way things are going nowadays, project beyond 10 years, I think would be pretty hard to do.
And that's again why I say
Everything
we
moves
should
fast.
be looking at that every few years to say, you know, okay, how are we doing? Are we having a big population increase right now that says, gee, we're going to get a lot more than 5,000 if this keeps up. We need to adjust. We need to provide you know, more housing opportunities in this community or over here. Or it's not growing nearly as fast as we expected. Do we want to modify things to increase commercial development, for example, to encourage job growth? Those are the kind of things that we would want to look at on a regular basis.
Yeah, so one of the things that you know, I was always interested in is having a person, like for instance my business, to where it's changing. Due to COVID, we have restrictions on how we can operate it, how it can, how many people we can fit in there. You know, so you're reducing the amount of business that you could actually have. But if we were able to have some leeway on what we could do there, then we could diversify the business and make it more resilient to the different things like COVID.
Right.
And so I think I came and talked to you a little bit about that a few months ago. I know that.
Well, I've been working with, you know, the planning directors around the state. You know, we communicate together. Someone has an idea, we share it. Someone has a question, they post it out there to the rest of the directors. And we're all working on how do we adjust our commercial activities to COVID. You know, the ABC has now allowed for outdoor serving of alcoholic beverage, for example. And so people are putting, you know, tables out on the sidewalk if they have space, or, you know, using parking lots. So these are the kind of things that as a planner, we're looking at, okay, well, how does that affect the rest of the community? If we suddenly use up all of our parking area for tables, where are you going to park people?
Yeah,
how does that spill over into residential areas?
And already a hard place to park anyhow.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are the things that I think are going to be the immediate challenges. If these restrictions and safety protocols stay in place, we're going to need to adjust. We're going to need to figure out a way that allows businesses to stay viable and what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, stay viable, they keep making money, they stay in business. I mean, there are already a couple of businesses in my hometown of Murphy's that are closing down. They're for sale now because they just couldn't make it through this. You know, those are some of the things that we'll be looking at in the immediate future of, you know, trying to assist our, you know, our economy to continue to thrive.
Okay, and I know that one of the things that hinders business is the infrastructure that we have in the county for you know, sewer and water and you know, the different roads and things like that. I know that one of the things I was interested in and asking you about was what can people expect for like home-based businesses?
We actually have a fairly liberal ordinance right now that allows quite a bit of home-based businesses. I think the one restriction that we have is we're trying to limit the amount of traffic that comes to a home because, you know, you live in a residence and suddenly your next door neighbor has constant flow of traffic. That can be pretty irritating. Yeah. Trying to strike that balance is, you know, what we need to look at. You know, allowing someone to operate a home-based business while protecting the enjoyment of the neighbor's property. And that's, you know, that's not new. That's sort of the whole reason planning exists anyway.
Right.
But it's going to create a new challenge as people looking for other ways to, you know, make money, to have an economy and to have livelihood.
It is our economy, and you know, our schools and our roads and everything that the improvements that we can make in the county for everybody depend on that economy.
Right, right.
So, So how about we get into the controversial subject, Peter? Let's talk about cannabis.
Well, we've been sort of back and forth with, the makeup of the board. And, as a department head, I get direction from the board. The current board majority.
Feel like a ping pong ball yet?
A little bit. We adopted a regulatory ordinance last fall in October. And we created this new department to try to shepherd those applications through the process. Last I heard, there was about 130 applications that are in process right now, and I know that a handful have been approved and have been granted the state licensing, so they should be up and operating pretty soon. This is, again, a component of the economy that at least the current board has said, we are going to allow it. Promote maybe a little bit of exaggeration on that, but they say, hey, there are people that can, contribute to the economy with this industry, and the board has decided that's going to be allowed. So, there's a lot of adjustment going on. The building codes are creating a lot of challenges for the growers because of, safety requirements, fire requirements, handicapped accessibility, that the things that were happening in the past 10 or 20 years of just, working in your garage or putting up a hoop house, that doesn't fly anymore. A new industry is, this industry is having to meet the same rules that any other industry is having to do, and they're finding it challenging. It's expensive and time consuming, and welcome to the real world. And we're also realizing that the ordinance that we adopted, in the fall, needs adjusting, just like anything. You think we got it down, and then we realize, oh, we didn't think about that issue, or that didn't really quite work out the way we thought it would. We need to do some tweaking. So the board gave us some direction earlier this year to make some modifications. That'll be going to the Planning Commission soon. They're looking at expanding some of the uses to the testing and distribution and manufacturing. So that'll be sort of the next issue that we'll have to address on that front. But I think the board made a decent compromise in saying, okay, this industry did contribute to the economy. There were some bad players in it. There was some, maybe it was a little too loose during the urgency ordinance period, so let's tighten it down a little bit. Let's not put it in any residential areas, so we're keeping it out of the rural residential. But it's going to take several years, I think, before all the bugs are worked out of any new regulatory ordinance. And like you say, it's controversial, and even what I'm saying right now could be irritating some people.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm trying to keep a very neutral approach. Again, the board gives me policy directive. My job is to implement that, and the policy right now is we're going to allow this industry in the county.
Yeah, well, good. And I think that I think it's calmed down quite a bit, and I know that you guys are working really hard to make it as safe as possible for everybody. Yeah. I hear things, as I go to different stores, and I'll see people that talk about it on both sides. Mm-hmm. And but I think overall, I think you guys are doing a great job. It's morphed into what it needs to be for our county. Yeah. That's the main thing. Safety is really important.
Right, and I think that's really where we tried to focus our our approaches. How can this industry operate in the county within the constraints of state law and protect other people's property rights?
Oh, I like that one, as you well know.
Yeah.
So, any other news on cannabis?
Well, the board adopted an ordinance yesterday on retailers. And so a month from now, when that ordinance becomes effective, the current 4 retailers in the county will be able to apply to modify their permits to allow for adult use sales. They'll still need to go through modification to their state license. It's going to take a little bit of time, but the board did adopt that. So adult use cannabis is now going to be available in the county, for better or worse.
Yeah,
and I won't be a judge of that.
Yeah, well, we can't be, right? Yeah. So, tell me, I was over there at the government center yesterday, I think it was, And I noticed that there's some construction going on over there. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the little bit that I know, and probably you might want to have another guest that could probably talk a lot more about that, but the old jail has been demolished. It's nothing but a pile of rubble right now. Monday, the last part of it, the two-story call center was taken down. It's sort of fun to watch as a kid. I always loved watching big construction projects and the big equipment, and so I take a little break and walk over and see how that the guy operating that whatever you call the big thing with the excavator, an artist, being able to take down that building, but it's going to be replaced with some office space for departments that have long needed new space. I think the DA's office is one of those. I'm not sure of all of the plans, and they may still not be solidified, but I know that the DA needs additional space. But that space that was the old jail has now been demolished. There's piles of rubble that will be recycled and hauled away, and then be prepared for some new construction. Don't know when that is. I don't know what the financing mechanism is for that, and again, given the current state of affairs with COVID and how it might affect long-term and short-term financing, that that may be delayed a little bit too.
Well, I always felt that the DA sitting in a portable wasn't the greatest way to do business for them.
Well, portables are a good temporary facility, but after 20 years, that's not temporary anymore.
It's no longer temporary.
Yeah.
Yep. So, are you growing in your department, or are you maintaining?
We're pretty stable. We've had some turnover in the past, and we've been able to replace those. It took a little while to replace some of the positions. We left some higher level positions, but we've been pretty stable right now. The development activity is. It's been pretty flat. We haven't seen any huge increase, nor have we seen a big decrease in development activity. There are a lot of approved projects that are on the books that are sort of waiting for the economy to catch up to, or for Calaveras to catch up with the rest of the economy. You see some of the surrounding counties, particularly places like El Dorado and Placer County, that's closer to the urban areas that have seen a huge boom, since the last recession. We never quite recovered from that. And so a lot of projects that have been on the books have had time extensions, trying to keep those projects alive for a bit. Some of them have just been allowed to expire. We've got a pretty big project, the recertification of the Saddle Creek project in Copperopolis. We have some new owners there that are trying to get that going, and that's pretty exciting to see that happening. In Coppertown Square in that area. Smaller developments, some new commercial space in Murphy's here in town, some new development going on in Valley Springs. The COG, the Calaveras Council of Governments, has worked with Caltrans to help fund some studies that looked at circulation within the community, and I think that'll help with that community. We had a similar one done in Murphy's last year, another one that was done here in San Andreas. So looking at how the state highways affect circulation and land uses in our communities. Almost every community in our county has a state highway running right through the middle of it. That is Main Street. It may not be named Main Street, but that is the main street. And that creates some real challenges for a community. And so trying to get Caltrans to be, a more cooperative partner in that has been, something that they've been working on as well as we have. I hope that we're moving in the right direction there, that, the road through town is just not the purpose of getting cars from point A to point B, but it is the thoroughfare. People can walk there, that, it provides an interesting location for people to stop, get out, spend their money in our community, support our local communities.
Yeah, not to mention the kids from the different schools and all of that.
Safety is a really big issue with that.
Yeah, and then we have sidewalks to consider, things that make it a little safer for kids walking around.
Right.
And we do have a lot of schools around in this area anyhow. With Calaveras High School.
Yeah, and fortunately a lot of that was paid for by things like Safe Routes to School grants, so that the federal and state government has money to you know, to fund some of that stuff, to let's put in sidewalks to keep kids off the street so they can walk safely to school, or promote alternative modes of transportation. So you live around the corner, you can walk to the store or walk to the park without having to get in your car and drive. So that's at least a new paradigm for Caltrans with their highways.
Yeah, I was involved in quite a bit of the circulation stuff, when I was in office, and I was happy to see the Gateway
Gateway study,
study come in to be able to check out our area here, because there's a lot of kids around here, so and bikes, and that kind of makes it a challenge for bikers too. So I'm happy to see that they're working on all.
So we have all these studies, and now the next step is, okay, let's start implementing it. And I think we've got some there's some money available for some of the first phases of sidewalk installation here in San Andreas. I think the other thing that is important that we're working on right now is, now that we've adopted the general plan, is how do we implement it? And we're working on updating the zoning code. Very outdated, needs to be a lot of things that we don't even address, that we need to, how do we make it more user friendly? There's a lot of other measures, greenhouse gas reduction programs and farmland protection programs, a lot of things that were identified in the environmental impact report for the general plan that we need to address. And so that's our major focus right now, is trying to get some of that stuff started.
Yeah, I don't know if people realize how big your job is. I do. You're going in a lot of different directions and tackling a lot of things, and I've always appreciated the work that you do.
Well, thanks.
And I know that you're limited on budget, and you're limited on the amount of folks that you can have work in your office, and for all of these different projects, and it's hard to do them all at one time. And so I think that we're going to be good, and I'm very happy that you're with us, Peter.
Well,
still.
thank you. Well, you got to pick your priorities. You got to identify what's the most important things and move forward with those. And you can work on a couple at a time, but you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess that's probably going to take care of our interview, since we're both probably talked out right about now. But I certainly appreciate you being here. I appreciate the hard work. I know that this county has been through quite a few planning commissioners, or planning directors, and I'm very happy that you're sticking around. So I'd like to say thank you once again for coming down and doing this interview with us, and hope that Calaveras County is taking a look at this so they can get updated on what's going on.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for joining us on The View tonight, and we will see you next time.